All right. Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is our May SILA Foundation webinar. And I think we have about, 50 or 60 people registered. You're all on mute, so we are happy to accept questions through the chat feature at the bottom. And today we are covering how to be your own financial services reporter. And I cannot tell you how delighted I am to welcome Allison Bell. Allison is, I've been following Allison's reporting for like 10 years, so excuse me if I fangirl a little bit here today. Allison's one of the most knowledgeable and competent journalists currently working in financial services. She's done more to demystify health insurance than almost anyone else, and is one of only a handful of people who actually has read through and fully understands the Affordable Care Act that was passed in 2010. I keep expecting her to show up on CNN or 60 Minutes, but so far that hasn't happened. Their loss is our gain, because she is with us today to talk about, how to dive in and find information. Allison's now the insurance editor for Think Advisor and previously served as the health insurance editor for Life Insurance Pro. I think a lot of us subscribe to that. She has her BA in economics from Washington University in St. Louis and a master's in journalism from Northwestern University. You should definitely subscribe to the Think Advisor Life Health Daily so you can read her every day. And you can also stalk her on Twitter like I do at think_Allison. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Allison Bell, and thanks again for being here.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and thank you for all being on the line. And of course, the top financial services topic of the day is, of course, what I think about the Game of Thrones universe. And I'd say it's a good place to write annuities, but a very hard place to be a banker or sell life insurance. To move on to how to be your own financial services reporter. I think that if you're on the line and you've been in business intelligence for forever, or you've been a reporter, you know 10 times more than I do. But my perception is that a lot of my readers are kind of struggling to find just kind of basic information. And if you're a more advanced reader, you just put up. It's sort of like fishing. You have to catch a lot of shoes to catch a fish. So hopefully I have a fish in here. So why consider being your own reporter? First of all, if you're getting too much news and you want to have an approach to narrow down what you're getting, another challenge is, say if you were reading publications like mine or others and you think, gosh, that's gone downhill, you might want a different kind of news. Or see, if you cover a very specialized topic, like if your prime interest is in something like pre-needs insurance or pet insurance or telemedicine plans, you might need very specialized information that no publication is really providing. And then you might also want behind the scenes information that, typical small financial services publications aren't really going to either gather or print. Like I'm not rushing to do articles about, affairs inside insurance regulatory agencies or something. Like if you really want the gossip, you might have to go find it yourself. Like because why there's pressure to be your own reporter, like in financial services, there's a huge amount of pressure for people to be their own financial services intermediaries, basically. Like people tell consumers, oh, go set up your own retirement plan, go manage your own HSA. And I think that's kind of happening in news too. Like the idea is, well, government agencies and companies put lots of information online, that they used to only provide through reporters. And so, well, of course, you can go get that information. It's just kind of a hard thing, but there's a lot of economic pressure for you to go get the information yourself. And there's a lot of economic pressure on news organizations to just try to get any old click any possible way. So the reality is that a lot of advertisers, they pay ads based on how many pages people click, not on how long people looked at the article. So if I somehow find some excuse to post 12 cat photos, chances are even you in financial services will look at that more carefully than look at that more than my article on the Affordable Care Act. And the advertisers actually would prefer your clicks on the cat photos than my wonderful clicks or your rapt attention to my article about the Affordable Care Act. But then, okay, so another consideration is, okay, say maybe you've thought about being your own reporter, but does that actually make sense? Like, because there are disadvantages to doing this. Like before you do anything, there are disadvantages to being your own retirement planner or your own compliance manager. And there's similar kinds of problems with trying to really be your own reporter. One is it may take time, might take money, it might be boring, you might get results. You might get results that are too good. Like say if you start looking into corruption in financial services and you find some horrible corruption, then everybody will be really mad at you for finding the corruption, and what do you do with that? And there might even be regulatory issues where if I, as an outside reporter, do things, I can ask the questions. Like I can ask how much everybody's charging and how the prices have charged. But say people in financial services, if they ask those questions, there might be antitrust problems. Or if I start asking about, people's horrible, lurid affairs, well, that's me being a horrible, gossipy reporter, but I'm just a reporter. If you in this universe start asking those questions, maybe there are issues with you asking questions like that. So it's like with anything else you might do on your own, you might want to start by looking at other ways to do things, like, say publications like mine, it's hard for them to get people's attention. It might be that there's some publication that still does exactly what you want and has all the information that you've never heard of. So you might just do a good Google search and see, is there some source of news that has what you want? If you're at some big organization, like a company or a regulatory agency, you can create your own competitive intelligence unit. Spies are really just reporters who don't necessarily have to publish their stuff in a newspaper. Another way to do it is to join a trade group or a professional group like SILA and pool your resources. And they have people go around asking nosy questions and, of course, doing surveys, doing newsletters. If, say, for your topic, there just really isn't a trade group that is a group that's publishing information in your sector, well, it could be you could get together with other people in your sector and you can actually start your own national association of people who are interested in what I'm interested in, and you guys all chip in and go hire a laid off reporter, and that person can go out and be the reporter. Then you don't have to do the work and you give paid work to some poor, desperate, starving reporter. So say if you decide that you do want to be your own reporter, you might want to define what's a reasonable job for you to do. So, like, well, what is the difference between being a reporter and just, looking, sort of Googling a little bit on the web? To me, the difference would be that if you're just kind of Googling, a lot of times you are really using somebody else's news, and somebody else went to the source documents and they decided what questions to ask and how to present it and all that. Like, so you're looking at the New York Times or BuzzFeed or just what people are posting on Twitter, and you're getting their interpretations. You're not looking at sort of what's coming from the horse's mouth. But so then the next thing might be to look at, well, how much time and energy are you willing to spend on this? Like, do you want to do it a few minutes a day? Do you want to give up your day job and just do this full time? That determines what kinds of goals you can have. So if all you want to do is figure out some way to filter the flood of news coming in, that should be pretty easy. You just have to figure out some, get your bookmarks of your sources and figure out ways to digest that data in a way that you can use the information. If all you're doing is, say, tracking, say, legislation or regulations or other things where there's public information feeds, that's pretty easy. You have to find the information feed and understand how it's set up and get stuff out of it. Like, say the SEC EDGAR, you have to know, well, what is the SEC? What is Securities and Exchange Commission? What is its EDGAR filing storage and retrieval system? And then how to use EDGAR's tools for finding things. But so pretty much anybody can do that. You just have to decide you want to do it. If you really want private gossip about people who aren't movie stars, of course, that's really hard to do, and that probably takes a lot of time and people skills. If you want to have some information source that will give you authoritative analysis about what will happen in the future, that's really hard and maybe impossible, because people can pretend that they know what the future will be, but usually they pretend they make you think they know what the future is by having good clothes and good hair, but that doesn't mean they know what the future is. So that's not necessarily a realistic goal. You can know what's happening now and what's affecting the future, but not about the future. So so then if you start to really kind of formally or semi-formally be your own reporter and really regularly go out and get information, one thing you might want to think about is, especially if you're spending money or hiring somebody or getting an intern to do it, is will that show up in your organization's filing somehow, or do you have to account for that time, and how do you feel about that? And because you're in such a highly regulated sector, what do government agencies think about it, or business partners? Say if liability insurers or antitrust lawyers are looking at you, what do they think? You want to have really quality time with a lawyer. I don't think you want to just wing that. And another thing in this kind of sector, you've got to think about, well, what if everything you were doing suddenly became part of a front page story in the Wall Street Journal, and you can hear sort of the ghost of Walter Winchell narrating the story? Well, how would what you're doing look? If all you're doing is tracking bills, well, there's not much Walter Winchell's ghost can ding you for that. But if you're asking about lurid gossip, then, you know, how will that look? You've got to think about that. Okay, then, so information sources to consider if you'll be your own reporter, and that might include traditional publications like mine, Think Advisor, Life Health, yay. Social media streams. So, you know, a lot of times people just post off the top of their heads on social media and maybe don't have a great filter and are kind of crazy and post stuff they shouldn't post. But then on the other hand, there might be bots or manipulative people who are pretending to do that and actually know exactly what they're doing and are flooding Twitter or whatever with fake news. But I mean, there is a lot of interesting stuff out there, and if you're looking at that, just like every week or so, you might think, well, try to search and see if there's some new social media feed thing that you've never heard of. Like maybe you've heard of Instagram. Have you ever tried looking for financial services on Instagram? Maybe there's something interesting there, or Pinterest, or who knows. And then other types of online services like blogs or, you know, of course, companies' own websites, things like that. Other information. And then you can also just try going into libraries and looking in, say, a good business library or a law library and see what information sources do they actually still have on paper. Maybe there's some that still get census reports on paper, or they get, you know, some investment newsletters still on paper, or things like that. You know, one way to look for all these resources is just Google, just great sources of information or great sources of news or the best sources of news on X. And you'll have to go through many horrible hits, but maybe you'll find some good lists of resources to look at. And another thing you could try doing is, if you're on any kind of social, say Twitter or a LinkedIn group or any social media stream, just ask people, where are you getting your information? And of course, the very best source of information is Live Humans. If the closer you are to basically kissing them, the better. So if you're, you know, if you can converse with people through a LinkedIn group or Twitter, well, that's okay. And then if you actually are with them, see, if you're looking at them at a conference and they're the speaker, well, that's okay. If you're eating lunch with them and you're awkwardly trying to figure out what to say with each other, well, that's heating up. You know, if you kind of really somehow manage to talk to them for a few minutes for real, beyond lunch, like just milling around, that might be better. And then the grand prize is if you actually go out golfing or eating dinner with somebody you've never met. Like, the way you're really going to get true gossip that you just can't get anywhere else is eating dinner with somebody. Now, say if you're thinking you're just trying to tame what you get from traditional publications, one thing to think about is sort of tools online for taming the online river. And of course, there's RSS feeders, but those are things that take structured news streams from publications and try to give you sort of a structured flow of news. Now, one problem with the good thing is that will get you lots of great streams of information from big news organizations like, say, the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg, but lots of little organizations and government information feeds, they may not have RSS feeds. They just haven't done the work to create an RSS feed. So the alternative to RSS feeds is you get Firefox. even if you hate Firefox, you get the browser Firefox, and you get the add-on for Firefox called Alt Update Scanner, and you install Alt Update Scanner, and you start adding sites that you want to follow to that. And what you do is you then have to open. It will find out whether sites have changed, and you just have to open a bunch of tabs in that app to see what has changed and how, and if you want to look at it. And I didn't even put that in here because I don't want other reporters to know about it. Alt Update Scanner. If there's anything of value you got out of this, it might. If you don't have Alt Update Scanner, get that app. And you can use Alt Update Scanner to, for example, it won't work on every website. Sometimes if there's really quirky programming, it won't track stuff, but you could use it to track forums. Like, so say if on, say, there might be industry forums that are still in front of login walls, like anybody can see them, where people are really gossiping. And if you can find something of interest, that may be the very best source of information other than going to lunch with people. And the great thing is you can use Alt Update Scanner to see if those forums have changed. Like if they changed all the time, maybe you just have to go there and read them a bunch. But if the truth is posts only come in every few days, you might want Alt Update Scanner to help reduce how often you have to go into that forum to see if there's an interesting post or not. Okay, another way you can use web forums is to filter traditional media and ask people there, oh, what should I be reading? What are you reading? And chances are a lot of times the people on those forums will post links to the good stuff. The simplest way to find the good stuff is look, well, what are people talking about on those forums? Finally, another way to find traditional news articles is to use interns, employees, or trade groups to find stuff. Okay, and still another way to find, good juicy stuff inside traditional news organization articles is look for reporters and organizations that actually give you the links to the documents that they used. Like a lot of publications, the truth is they don't really want to give you a link to some outside website because among other things, they want you to see on their website and read all their articles infinitely, so you look at the ads. But like I always try to give links to the actual website where I found articles, and so if you follow that link and you look and see, well, where on that website was this article? Oh, maybe in that part of the website, maybe you should bookmark that part of that website, and it has many, many things that you'll want to read all the time. Like say if I'm linking to a particular, part of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services webpage, maybe if you liked my article about something there, maybe what you really want to do is just always look where I found the stuff for that article, not just my articles. You can see the CMS website as easily as I can, and instead of reading my summary of the article a few days after the document shows up, you can read the CMS document the instant it shows up. Okay, now to use social media to be your own reporter, well, one thing is just to find feeds you like that seem to have people of interest to you on them. Another important thing is to look hard at the search tools on the social media sites, because you may just see a little box that says search, but if you know a lot about, but next to that there might be a link that says advanced or something like that. And it might even be that there's ways you can just use that silly little box to do complicated searches. So see if it's Twitter or YouTube, go on Google or whatever your favorite search engine is and try to look for tips on how to use the search tool on that social media site. Because say, if you're on Twitter and you type SEC, you might be able to see, oh, what are people talking about the SEC? And they might be people all over the world, and they might be talking about lots of different organizations called SEC, not just the Securities and Exchange Commission. But if you type, say if you're in Washington, you're in some regulatory heavy part of Washington, D.C., and you type near : space me, and then you type SEC, maybe you'll find people right near you talking about the SEC on Twitter, and they all share your interest in Twitter. Or say, you hear sirens outside of your miles or something like that. Sirens, you can find out, well, why are the sirens going around outside your window? Now, one of the big problems is a lot of people are on LinkedIn and Facebook groups because they're sort of private, and it's hard to figure out what people are saying there unless you're part of the group. So another habit to get into might be just to look for lots of groups on LinkedIn and Facebook and try to join any that seem at all active, and just try to lurk there and fish for stuff of interest. And you may not know of all of these things, but of course, other sort of bread and butter online resources are, of course, Edgar. Canada has its own Edgar, cedar.com. The United Kingdom is starting to set up its own version of Edgar, Companies House. And another resource that might be useful is looking at congressional hearing records, because for Congress, a lot of times a hearing is really a class. It's a seminar on how some aspect of the United States or the world works. And the witnesses post these fabulous written testimonies that are really fabulous reports on that aspect of how the country or the world works. And many of them are about financial services. So another way is to just go on House.gov and Senate.gov and try to find hearings related to your interests and see if there's testimonies there that are fabulous and have information you've always dreamed of having. Still more be your own reporter resources would be any collection of press releases. One press release when you don't really want it is annoying, but a giant collection of press releases is really a great record of what different kinds of organizations are talking about. The more releases you have related to a topic, and the longer the time frame, the more interesting trends or information you can probably sift out of that collection of press releases. So even though you might be taught to sneer at press releases, no, they're wonderful. It's just you want to be able to get to as many as possible. Most of you probably know about this, but another great resource is conference call recordings on the company's websites. And one wonderful adjunct to that is seekingalpha.com. They get transcripts of the conference calls from Thomson Reuters. So if you're if you're going to pay for anything, if you have any interest in public companies and you're going to pay for anything at all, it might be worth it to pay for a Seeking Alpha subscription so that you can see their conference call transcripts. Now, another thing you can do, and this won't always work, especially if things are behind paywalls or login walls, but especially if you have an interest in recordings that are especially on YouTube, there's a service called taming.com that's really good at very quickly producing transcripts of YouTube videos. So if there is a hearing on that's been posted on YouTube or a conference call on there or any kind of event on YouTube, you can use taming.com to avoid having to watch the whole video. You can just pay maybe $15 to get a transcript and go through the transcript. For paper-based information sources, I think probably the truth is that a lot of the best information is probably still hidden on paper, that there's a lot of paper publications and public record sources going back a long time that are, on paper, and they're very hard to search. And so one way to deal with paper-based records is, if you can, just try to get a few samples of them to see how much effort you want to put into getting into them. Then if they look like they are actually great, you love them, can you get them online? Like, I think Captiva.com and Nexus, Captiva and Nexus and other services like that, they may actually have online or digital versions of paper publications that would just be, if you really need those paper publications, Nexus or Captiva might be godly. It might be the most amazing thing you've ever had. And as a last resort thing, you could use an intern or employee to go get the paper records and maybe take phone photos of them or something and send you copies. For reporting on live humans, the great thing is if you can just learn to play tennis or golf, or I don't know, bring people fishing or hiking or something. Okay, so now another thing to think about is, well, what will you do about the news you're collecting? If you do end up with it, you could just keep it all to yourself personally. You could share it to people you know. You could, publish it. You can be your own publisher. I'm sure there's many publications that really they started as somebody's own private information gathering service. And I mean, you just look, like, there's so much carnage in news. Business news is so skimpy and rotten right now. I mean, if you're really serious about this, it's probably easy to benefit from the die-off and become your own wealthy publisher. You just have to figure out how to get somebody to pay you. Okay, so reasons to share your news. Because, some of you listening, maybe really you wanted to be a reporter not in financial services, or you just think it would be helpful to people to share the information, or you want to make sure the information you're getting is really as good as it could be. One thing with true spies who really just report privately to a few people is they have a huge incentive to make stuff up that you'll believe and sounds good and that's hard to check. Like, they don't really have any incentive much to be accurate. They just have to try to send you stuff that, even if you find out they were wrong, you won't realize that they just made it up. So the great thing about having something be published is especially if other people are helping you get the news, they always have in the back of the mind that the sources of the information might see what's been written about them and complain if there's something that's wrong. And then again, you could be your own, you could get ad revenue or sell subscriptions and become a, Michael Bloomberg. So, and this goes back to what I was saying before about some of the risks involved with sharing information is the more you share information, the more risks there are with you being your own reporter. So one thing is if you're really trying to get proprietary information to increase your own sales and opportunities, like maybe, you tip off your competitors. Chances are your most loyal readers would be your competitors and people who want to do you in. Another problem is, you might have problems in your articles, like there might be typos and errors, and even if everything is right, people complain about stuff. And if say if you just do this for fun once in a while, for fun, and then you say to yourself, well, I'm going to do this every month or every week, like even though you think when you're doing it occasionally, oh, this is easy and fun, I really want to do this once a month, that would be so much fun. Once you're doing anything like once a month or every week or something horrible like that, then that deadline is horrible. The great thing about deadlines is it makes you finish something, but the horrible thing about deadlines is, oh, there's a deadline. I mean, nobody really wants to write stuff, so it's great to have written stuff. It's great to think about how wonderful you'll be writing something, but it's really hard to write things. So you might not really want to have to care about how you package the information you've collected. Another problem is, sort of hyped up legal-oriented criticism in the form of libel or invasion of privacy suits. And so again, if you're especially in financial services where you might be getting very valuable information about people with lots of money and lots of lawyers, you want to really understand something about libel law and privacy. Another thing to think about is if you try to send things out through email newsletters or some kind of email system, you've got to really understand what the rules are for sending out email. I know, for example, we have a system that I truly don't really understand, but I know that if I didn't do something and we accidentally kept sending email newsletters to people who didn't want our newsletters, that could lead to a $20,000 fine. So, you really don't want that. So another problem is that you may feel pressure to the same kind of pressure I feel to post cat photos over stuff that's really of core to what you're interested in. You might, so when you're trying to make your site beautiful or get wonderful information, you might somehow somebody else's copyright, or somebody else could steal your content. Or, the most horrible thing is there might be hackers or malware people of some kind, and they take a bunch of your content and they put it on servers in Asia or somewhere, and they use it to try to get people to come to their site to somehow do terrible things to them. So I think some of my articles are on malware sites that are, are used to try to hack people's computers. One thing you might want to do, if you do say, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to really do this regularly and seriously, is to think about, well, how would you measure success, or what are your parameters or measures of success, and how would you, track that? Like, do you want to save time? Do you want to make sales? do you just want to have lots of people read your articles because it would be fun? Do you want to make, do you want to sell ads or get subscription payments? You know, another thing you could be doing with this, if you have interns or young employees do this, is maybe that's a way to train people to understand your organization. Like if you have somebody helping to, say, prepare a little news summary for you every day, maybe they learn a lot about your sector. And then if you do measure performance, maybe think about, well, what would the cost, or how would you measure things that could be considered losses, and how will you actually track those, such as, you know, do you have to spend money on lawyers? If you get sued, do you have litigation costs? Do you have, if you're going to get questions from people, like, what's the cost of the time you spend looking at that email and answering the email? And if you spend a lot of time on this, like, and you're not doing your day job, what's the impact on your productivity with your regular real job? And now, are there any questions about all this?
So this is Cindy. I'm going to jump in with a couple of observations, and then we can give people a minute to maybe enter in some questions into the Q&A if we're going to have, I see we don't have any open questions at the moment, but I would say that for those of us who've been at this a while, it's really amazing to me how journalism has changed and evolved in the last like 15, 20 years. And yet, Allison, you're saying that live humans are still the best source, really the top of the food chain in terms of sources for information. So I really found that super interesting. Another observation I have is that a lot of what you were talking about are things that SILA is doing. So SILA is compiling regulations, tracking state rules, and informing members about key issues in the industry. So I think we are serving, I think, as a kind of a reporting function for our membership. We bring subject matter experts to help educate and analyze. I don't know how much predicting the future we do, but we definitely try to do that at conference. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I would love to see, yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because SILA, yeah, and like say the American Council of Life Insurers or LIMRA or, you know, the PC groups, yeah, they really are a form of you know, specialized information gathering operations. So they're gathering information, and like a webinar like this is sort of, it's sort of like a live version of a little article about how do you do your company newsletter. So, and then you might also have an article somewhere on how to do your company news or organization newsletter. So, I mean, I think that's why associations are so popular, because they're, in a way, that they're sort of, as the traditional news media kind of recedes and becomes poor, something has to fill the vacuum. Like business people and regulators, they still need a lot of information, so they're asking their associations to help them get that information.
Yeah, and I think the challenge for us is that, you know, insurance, especially being kind of it's a state-regulated business. So, and there's really no central place to go for that information. So if you want to know about enforcement actions, you have to look up on California's website and then on Illinois' website. And it really can be daunting to be, I get asked questions all the time of like, so what's the requirement for this? And the answer is always, it depends on the state. So, and then you end up doing 51 jurisdictions worth of research. So, so I do have a question about, you know, one of the things I struggle with, and I think maybe other SILA members do too, is the fundamentally inaccurate coverage of financial services topics by the mainstream media. So I'm wondering, Allison, how do you distinguish between like legitimate reporting and reporting from less reliable sources?
Well, now, of course, one issue here is, you know, if it says what you want it to say, it is nice, it will seem more accurate. But, you know, another issue is that in a way, this is kind of why I think you almost have to be your own reporter, or you almost have to join associations that will sort of be your own reporter, because the problem is there are not that many reporters left, really, and a lot of the ones who are left are reporting on sort of general things, and they have no special knowledge about anything, and they're very dependent on, well, what press release they got today, and if they go to a news conference, what the person in front of them happened to say. They may not really understand the context very well. In a really short article, you may not really have room to present all the context, but if you kind of know, oh, there's two sides of the issue, there might be a certain way to report on that. But if you're this reporter who's been sent and you cover all of business, or maybe all of everything, and you get sent to a news conference on business, or something related to business, well, maybe you accurately report what the person in front of you said, but you have no idea that the person in front of you is very biased, and that there's a whole nother side. And especially, like, think about most reporters are, they're probably typically, pretty young. They may have never bought a financial services product of any kind. If they have, they've probably bought car insurance, or maybe they've signed up for voluntary benefits at work, or work site benefits at work, and that's kind of it. So they really, when I started, I was an editorial assistant at a daily newspaper in Virginia, and we were supposed to call up somebody who handled commodities trading and write down what had happened to the prices of commodities. And I remember somebody next to me who was working on that asked, well, do the plus or minus signs matter? So remember, and I remember I was at a really respectable business paper, and we were all doing our own 401. We were signing up for our 401k plans, and another reporter asked the managing editor, well, could I lose money on this? And the managing editor told him about a 401k plan. Oh, no, you won't lose money. The market always goes up. So it might not be that there's any true intentional bias, but the reporters are just often coming from such a different perspective than you would be.
So they have no context to really. So what my takeaway is that to make sure, for reliable news sources, to make sure two sides are being presented on any issue, so that there's at least been some at least they've done some research there.
Well, or at least they may be. Try to read a couple different things, and they may be both. People on both sides might be ignorant of the other side. Like, it might be they're equally ignorant, but just in different directions.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Well, I think we're getting close to wrapping up. I will say that my favorite quote from Allison today was, "Spies are just reporters who don't publish their results." I think I'll be taking that one with me. And I think, to the SILA staff, I think it would be maybe helpful if we compiled a list of, kind of the dailies and the insurance and securities news that's available to our members. I know Think Advisor is one, but the other ones that I subscribe to, Insurance Journal, the NAIC Daily Newswire, I get insurance commentary from Bill Wilson. Some of them you can do what you were suggesting, Allison, where you just say, don't send me something every day, send it on the weekly basis, and then I can kind of scan through. But maybe we could create a resource of kind of our legitimate news sources that are available. I know it changes day to day, but that might be something we could pull together for our members, and that might be useful.
Well, and another thing might even be, like, see if there's interns or something. Maybe if they just do say, if you look at, say, sort of the regulatory sites of interest to the members, maybe you could have interns, like say their first week, just do a little summary of, well, what is this site and what's available on this site? Just like a little site guide to different sites of.
Yeah, I think that would be excellent.
With a bunch of links that show, well, you could go get this kind of information here and this information there.
Right. I love it. I love it. Well, I cannot thank you enough for joining us and spending this time with us. I think everybody learned something. This webinar will be available, a recorded version will be available on the SILA Foundation website, and in a few weeks, I guess, when we get that all pulled together. But thank you so much, Allison, for joining us. Really enjoyed having you on board, and we might tap you again next year. You just never know.
Anyhow, thank you very much for being an audience, and thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, you guys. We'll adjourn.
Bye.